Hi, this is Randall here in Texas.
And I'm Matt here in Michigan. Today, Randall and I are taking a look at something ahead of Star Wars Day. We're looking at the 2003 Cartoon Network series, Star Wars Clone Wars. It stars James Arnold Taylor, Matt Lucas, Tom Kane, Corey Burton, Nick Jameson, Terrence Carson, Andre Sugruzu, and Anthony Daniels. This show is created by Genndy Tartakovsky. He's known as the creator for several other animated television series, including Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack, and Primal. Now, if you like this review, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notified when our latest videos come out.
Star Wars Clone Wars came out in 2003 and had very, very good reception from critics and audiences. It tells the story between episode 2 and 3 of the Clone Wars as a series of animated shorts. It is now streaming on Disney Plus as part of the Star Wars Vintage Collection. Matt, this is kind of known as a bit of a forgotten series. We just watched it for Star Wars Day, which will be coming tomorrow. May the 4th be with you. What did you think of it watching it through this time?
I still think this is an enjoyable piece of Star Wars, even though it's no longer canon. And yes, some of the characters seem overpowered and compared to what they're shown in other medium and stuff. But no, I still enjoy this one. And heck, if we didn't get this one, we don't get the Clone Wars series. So I think it's a good test for that. And also, it does a pretty good job of bridging the gap between our second movie, Attack of the Clones, and our third movie, Revenge of the Sith.
I absolutely loved watching through this up, all in all, thinking the entire time, how much better maybe this did some things than other things, but really just how well it treated the characters and how good it does at bridging that gap you were just talking about. Given that it's just shorts, it's like you can watch this whole thing in a couple of hours, like maybe 2.5 hours. It does such a wonderful job, and it really is a joy to watch again.
Yeah, like you said, it's a lot. Just those 2 hours are to watch, and we do get a bit of backstory on some of our characters. Get a little bit more showing, Anakin, becoming Darth Vader a little bit and stuff too. And we also see more of the behind the scenes stuff of Palpatine's manipulation and stuff to really set the stage. So yeah, I do like it, even though this isn't a dialogue heavy show at all. But a lot of Tartakovsky's stuff isn't really dialogue based.
Yeah, I actually had that wrote down as a note on mine, dude. The fact that this is a story that's told almost exclusively through showing actions instead of just characters talking to each other. But in my mind, that is what makes it so much more powerful, because we actually get to see Obi-Wan and Anakin doing all of these things together and becoming this, great general that Obi-Wan is well known for, and Anakin becoming this best starfighter in the galaxy that he's, quoted in episode 4 as.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and a cunning warrior.
You see that so much more here than you do in any of the prequels, and I think maybe even a little bit more than we see in the Clone Wars series as well. It does a good job with the characters, and in my opinion, I love how OP the Jedi and the Sith are, and I especially love just how special the ARC troopers are in comparison to the normal clone troopers.
Oh yeah, I agree. That specialized thing. And like I said, Randall and I, we may get more later into comparing this Clone Wars to the Clone Wars. And you're talking about, that Obi-Wan Anakin. I think this takes a little bit different approach with that Obi-Wan Anakin relationship than we get into the Clone Wars. So it's kind of interesting on what they were kind of setting up, before leading into Revenge of the Sith. And then afterwards, getting the Clone Wars afterwards, I think they take a little bit different approach. But you mentioned characters too. I love that we introduce two characters in this little series that become bigger mainstays later on, mostly because of that, mentioned the Clone Wars. We get General Grievous, who at the time, I don't know, he was really fleshed out of what he was going to be in Revenge of the Sith. So he's just this awesome, badass character, in the first, I would think it's the second season of this, is just amazing. And, he changes a little bit in the third season. And then the other character that we get, Asajj Ventress, I think even though she's short, I'm glad that we get that introduction of, kind of like another Sith, or like a Sith in training kind of thing, to like challenge Anakin to, kind of push him more towards like the dark side and stuff. I definitely liked those two additions in this, and that we get those introductions here.
I think it's a shame that people forget that those two characters are introduced here. That they're not the characters that you see originally, anyways, in The Clone Wars or in Episode 3 with Grievous. In fact, this story even goes so far as to explain Grievous's breathing issues in Episode 3, which is just taken as, no, that's just the way he is in other mediums. These two characters are so well introduced and so interesting in their short little time on screen here, and especially Asajj Ventress, you already mentioned it. You get to see Palpatine pulling the strings behind the scenes, and it's like, she can take down Anakin Skywalker, and Palpatine's just like, nah, she's just an instrument to push him in the direction I need him to go.
She is merely an instrument to bring forth the eradication of the Jedi.
Super well done.
Mm-hmm. And also, going on with those characters, some of the voice actors that we get in this miniseries, we also carry over into the Clone Wars. And I think that just goes to talk on how well they did in this, and that the success of this miniseries, actually going to leading to the, the more, I would say, probably fleshed out, the Clone Wars series.
Oh yeah, man. And the Clone Wars series itself does such an interesting job of like expanding the war, but I think in this version of the Clone Wars, you really get, it's just 2 hours, but it does a really good job of showing you the scale. This goes from planet to planet, and there's just millions, billions of droids and clones. It's absolutely insane how well they show you the scale of these battles, and the space battles have so many ships in them. It is crazy to think that this came before all that we've come and known as canon. And if you haven't seen it because you just came along after it, came out, you have to give this a look. It's so much fun to watch, and it's a completely different take. Almost one person's creative vision, just being able to just play in Star Wars. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and Tartakovsky, he really has his, own style. Like, you kind of see that animation, and it's his. And I like how, he kind of makes the Jedi Knights like actual knights in this. Like, we see them riding, speeders with lances, almost like you would see like knights riding horses with lances and stuff with this. And, I like Star Wars when it kind of, borrows from different genres or whatever. We still have this same world, but we're borrowing from more, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's Western, whether it's opera, or whether it's, like medieval knights kind of thing. I like that in Star Wars, and I think they do a good job with that. It expands the universe a bit.
It's fun when you say borrows from other genres. There's a scene in here where Grievous is first introduced, and the clones show up, and they're just like blasting him. I'm like, oh, that's just like that scene in Predator where they're just blasting at the Predator and they don't hit anything. A lot of this Star Wars in general, when George Lucas came up with this idea, is like stealing it from those old matinees and everything that he used to watch as a kid. He takes a lot of that, and Star Wars is probably at its best when it relives that kind of moment in the sun and starts saying, well, we're going to pluck this from, here, and we're going to pluck this from here. Maybe a little bit of appropriation, no doubt. If it's appropriation used in some way, for entertainment, it's like, okay, settle down. We're watching a movie that's based on, imaginary characters.
I'm trying to think more of kind of like what the negatives on this. I mean, it's 2 hours, so if you think about it kind of like a movie sense, it's pretty good. It doesn't have, I would say, necessarily like its own like encompassing arc. It's just meant to be kind of like this bridge between, episode 2 and 3. And I think it does serve as well to like enhance as something that's like on its own. I don't know if it's something that you really watching to get like an overarching story, like, hey, I want like an overarching story. It's more kind of like character, studies kind of thing. We look at some things with like Padme, or some stuff with Yoda and Mace Windu, and I think that's kind of cool too, that we get to see a little bit more interaction between those characters than them just like talking in like the Jedi Council
again and again and again and again. Yes, that's something the prequels do a lot of. But one of the things that I think that this does particularly well is, if you blink and you'll miss it, is they're talking about, whether or not we're going to move Anakin up to Jedi Knight status. You see him go from the end of episode 2 Padawan to Knight to like full on, long hair episode 3 Anakin and all of that. But at his ceremony where they do say, all right, you're going to be a Jedi Knight, Mace Windu's not there. And it's so obvious, but it's a blink and you miss it, because all these Jedi, they turn their lightsabers on and there's no purple lightsaber. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, it's an interesting thing that you have all of these, Jedi here from, the Master Council, but they were thoughtful enough to think that Mace Windu wouldn't be there, honestly. Like, yeah, I'm not okay with this.
They probably just explained it to Anakin, like, yeah, he's busy. He's off fighting in, some planet to try to keep the Separatists back.
He was there earlier that day, Matt.
yeah, but we just sent him off. On assignment.
We just sent him off on assignment. But yeah, like, I think it's an interesting omission, and I don't think it was on accident.
No, probably not. Probably wasn't on accident. And it kind of goes on it too. I mean, I'm glad too that we even see some of like Yoda's conflictions a bit about this too. And then, kind of interesting storytelling. We get that vision that Yoda receives before, he accepts making Anakin, a Jedi Knight. And that's kind of like, what would have been if Qui-Gon was the one that was training Anakin. If, Qui-Gon was the one sending a young Anakin on to do, this test kind of thing. And I think that's a little bit, could go deeper into like, Star Wars. And, we get another discussion before on why the duel of fates and stuff, that big fight between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon was so important, because that really was the future of Anakin. That fight was like, who was going to win, Maul or Qui-Gon Jinn? And I like that it kind of comes back around a little bit too, or a little seed planted in the, of Yoda exploring that idea too of, what if Qui-Gon was still around?
There's a lot of really good canon stuff here that isn't canon anymore, unfortunately, but 100% agree with that. You had mentioned that you're kind of thinking, oh, okay, what are some of the negatives of this? And I'll tell you what I think are some of the negatives. Pretty much everything with Padme and C-3PO.
Of course, I knew this was a bad idea!
I hate C-3PO. Not necessarily like in the original trilogy. In the original trilogy, he serves his purpose as a protocol droid, translator, all of that. That's fine. And then, but he became something so much more stupid in the prequels and this. So yeah, pretty much everything with C-3PO is a waste.
It was kind of interesting too. It always kind of took me back when Padme's like, hey, C-3PO, go get my cloak kind of thing, because I'm going to use you as cannon fodder. But I will say one thing about C-3PO. We do have Anthony Daniels, so if you get anything from like the live action movie, characters actually playing, their characters in this, we do have Anthony Daniels lending his voice to the character.
But really, even Padme's character, I appreciate what they did with this with Padme and Anakin's relationship, but whenever Padme's doing her own thing, it's just like, oh, she's just going to be headstrong because she's headstrong, and it's like, Yoda literally told you, stay on the ship, we don't need your help, and she goes out just so we can have the scene with her kind of showing that she's like capable of taking care of herself, but really she doesn't accomplish her mission because Yoda's fine. Yoda went and did his thing, Even that was really kind of very missed for me. Like, man, I wish they had done better by Padme's character when she's by herself and not just when she's with Anakin.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a thing, too. The only time we actually get to see Padme doing all too much was like in Attack of the Clones, when it's one of our least favorite scenes. That's when they're in the droid factory kind of thing. And then in episode 3, she doesn't really have much of those, like, fighting scenes or anything, or actually,
she's
really
pregnant.
show
What's
her
she supposed to do?
as Cable. Yeah, exactly. So I guess this is a little bit add to, and I don't want to skip to. I mean, she is in the arena fighting scene too, so I don't want to miss that in Attack of the Clones. But yeah, I agree with you. It is kind of like a kind of a push in thing. I think they did more focus on like the clones in this miniseries and like Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of thing. But we don't get as much as Padme. It's kind of like, like you said, a little added in, but we do have that Anakin Padme stuff that I guess is okay.
The clones in this are definitely treated differently than any other way that we've seen clones treated. They're basically fodder, except for the ARC Troopers, which again, at the beginning, I love the ARC Troopers. I think the ARC Troopers in this are super special. Something that they don't necessarily do very well in the other ones, where it's like they start making themselves like colorized and specialized. I'm like, no, in this interpretation, that special kind of ultra guerrilla, infiltration unit is really something extra special.
Oh yeah, when I first watched this, I think those were my favorite parts, were that, and then the other one too. I do like some of the Anakin stuff, like Anakin battling Ventress, and then also when he has to go and like help save like the one clan where all their warriors are taken, and that's what we're talking about. We're getting a bit more into that. Anakin actually becoming Darth Vader. Yeah, I will probably go into that a little bit more when we talk about the Clone Wars, because I think they take some of those same elements but do it in a different way.
It's refreshing to watch it in this kind of original thought experiment that this series was. And I'm super happy that we watched it for Star Wars Day. And hopefully if you haven't watched it, this review kind of says, I want to go back and watch that. Well, you can go watch it on Disney Plus if you have it.
Yep, totally agree with Randall. Heck, I was surprised it was even on Disney Plus since it's not in canon. I figured Disney would want to stick away from this. But yes, definitely go check it out. It's enjoyable, even though it's not canon anymore. Randall and I want to know what you guys think about Star Wars Clone Wars. Let us know in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out some of our other videos on our YouTube page. We got new movie reviews, flashback movie reviews. We look at TV shows. We also have deeper dive discussions.
We also have a Facebook page. Make sure to check out our Facebook page if you want to know the day before whatever we're going to be posting the next day on YouTube. We post new videos every Monday and Thursday. Make sure to come back and check us out. For now, I am Randall here in Texas. See everyone next time.
And I'm Matt here in Michigan. May the 4th be with you, everyone. Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.